The Florida Panthers surprised a lot of people. They are up 2-0 in their Eastern Conference final with both wins coming in overtime. Armando Velez of Locked On Florida Panthers joins us to discuss how the Panthers pulled off 2 road wins in OT, including a 4 overtime thriller. All that and more still to come on today's Locked On NHL podcast.
You're Locked On NHL, your daily podcast on the National Hockey League. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome, everybody, to the Monday edition of the Locked On NHL podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Want to thank everyone for making Locked On NHL your first listen every day. Please don't forget to subscribe on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts to get episodes as soon as they drop. And we are now also available on Sirius XM on the SXM app. Just do a search for Locked On NHL. Today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Just download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. It is my pleasure to welcome back to the show the host of Locked On Florida Panthers, Armando Velez, Mr. OT himself. And Armando, I love it. You're rocking the playoff beard.
Yes, it's something I'm not used to as far as growing one. It's taken a while in my life, but hey, thanks to the Florida Panthers, I mean, I wouldn't attempt to even grow one had they not made it this far. I mean, it's been a wild ride, and the Florida Panthers, I mean, you said it, OT, that the Florida Panthers continue to just find a way to win. I mean, 6-0 in this postseason run in OT. 60% of their wins have come in that, and then 9-0 in the last 3 postseasons in overtime. So I do have a little bit of a superstition going into every overtime, not tweeting the Florida Panthers' record when going into an overtime period, because I never want to jinx it. But lately they've been still finding a way to win every single time.
Now, let's go back to game 1 because it was a classic. I mean, 6th all-time longest game in NHL playoff history. What was it that the Panthers were able to do to, outlast the Carolina Hurricanes in that game?
For them, it came down to how they played at even strength. When it came to, of course, in both games, they got down early as well, and they were able to come back in both of them. And really, it's crazy because both third periods in games 1 and 2, it was a more tight checking third periods for both the Florida Panthers. I mean, in game 1, they only had 2 shots on goal in the third period, and for the Panthers, they just, Sergei Bobrovsky has been the story for this team. I mean, in game 1, he was 55 of 55 at even strength. The only goals that he gave up were those 2 power play goals. And it really came down to the one team not making one more mistake than the other. And one thing that I came to notice a few hours after I recorded my show after game 2 was both OT winners that Matthew Tkachuk scored. The pair of Brent Burns and Jacob Slavin were both on the ice. So this was always going to be a challenge for the Florida Panthers going into this series, but they were able to take advantage of that top pair by the Carolina Hurricanes in crucial situations.
Talk to me about Bobrovsky, because he had his ups and downs during the regular season, did not even start the playoffs as the number 1 goalie. What has he done so well, especially in this series against Carolina?
I think he's just really focused. And he's been through a lot ever since signing the $10 million contract. I mean, a lot of pressure going into his first year of having to live up to it. Of course, we all know why he earned that contract, everything that he did against Tampa Bay in 2019. And also with Bob, what also lit a fire under him was in the 2021 postseason when he was when he was replaced by Chris Driedger, and then Chris Driedger back to Bobrovsky, and then Bobrovsky back to Spencer Knight, and then Spencer Knight finishing that series against Tampa Bay. That was really what lit the fire under Sergei Bobrovsky. And he had a great regular season, even in 2022, at least compared to the first two seasons in a Florida Panthers uniform. And he was the least of the Panthers' worries in the 2021 postseason. The reason why the Panthers couldn't succeed is their run and gun style was neutralized by it was barely neutralized by the Washington Capitals. They were able to get through, and then Tampa Bay just completely exposed them. But they were able to change their systems around, and Sergei Bobrovsky continued to take it up a notch. And I haven't recorded my Monday episode yet, but I'm gonna go into the route of this Florida Panthers team seems unrecognizable, and I say that all in a good way for this Florida Panthers team, because you see so many times that the Florida Panthers just get so lost in their own zone, and then Sergei Bobrovsky is giving up the hashtag of course goal that we sometimes see, and he's gotten the nickname for Golski as well, time and time again, where every time there's a start. But really, Bobrovsky, as far as this season specifically, the performance really started in late February to early March. It fell off a little bit in mid-March, and of course got that non-COVID illness. But every time something major happens in Bobrovsky's life, whether it's on or off the ice, Bobrovsky also became a dad last year for the first time, so that has helped. So every single time that has happened, you always see his performance turn up a notch, and this is no exception. He said he saw that Alex Lyon was starting the first 3 games, and he said, I need to find a way to take this and run with it. And of course, we know the resume, the 2 Vezina trophies, and like I mentioned earlier, the contract. He's basically saying, I need to take this and run with it. And listen, last 10 games for Sergei Bobrovsky, 202 GAA and a 939 save percentage for Sergei Bobrovsky in 712 minutes and 1 second of time on ice. And of course, a lot of that log time was game 1 of the conference final, with Sergei Bobrovsky was incredible. And going back to game 2, the turning point moment for Sergei Bobrovsky was when he was able to stop a cross ice feed from Marty Necas to Turbo Teravainen, and he was able to get back to the right side of his crease and make a blocker save there. I'm like, it's just hard to get pucks by him. I mean, personally, I'm not, and part of what I deem as unrecognizable for this Panthers team is I'm used to high scoring games for this Panthers team. And the Panthers are finding ways to win these low scoring games, the games that you need to play in the postseason. And of course, for the Panthers, it's we're starting to see at least in the first 2 games, the Carolina Hurricanes, as far as what they do as far as goal score by committee versus what the Panthers have done with the top end talent scoring as well. Of course, Matthew Tkachuk and Sasha Barkov scoring on their end. So it starts with Bobrovsky, and then the team follows.
Talk to me about Matthew Tkachuk, and it goes beyond the game-winning goals. This guy seems to have added a certain spirit to the Florida Panthers in the playoff run this year. Spirit
is the correct word for the Panthers, as far as it's more than just that. It's also in the locker room. It's also when the opposing team is taking extra hacks at the goalie. I mean, even on one of the Panthers power plays in game 2, there was a scuffle between Matthew Tkachuk and Brent Burns, and then they both go and he's going to stand up for his teammate. And also the mindset of business as usual as well. I mean, both game-winning goals within 30 seconds of scoring, they're going right down the tunnel. It's like, we're not done. We still have business to do. This is the Stanley Cup playoffs. We're trying to bring this home. So it's not all about just flashiness for Matthew Tkachuk. He is a guy who wants to consistently come in, work hard, and inspire his teammates. I mean, Listen, I mean, Sasha Barkov he's not the flashiest player neither. And even at times you see him with a little flair here and there. And it might be because of Matthew Tkachuk. And you even saw it with some of the goals that he's scored lately, going back to the Leafs series and even in game 2 on Saturday night.
Yeah, he has certainly been inspirational to his teammates. No question about that. Armando, why don't you tell our viewers and our listeners where they could find the podcast and where they could find you on social media?
They can follow the podcast anywhere they listen to podcasts, on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, Google, you name it. Make sure we are booming, especially on the YouTube front, where I have a guest every single day, at least most days on the show, who cover the Panthers as well. And it's been a fun time interacting with different Panthers content creators on the show. And as far as myself, you can follow me on Twitter at MondoMan12. Follow the show account on Twitter at LO_FLA Panthers. And you can also follow us on Instagram as well. We're also booming on the Instagram front.
All right. Well, it's going to be a fun ride. Armando, thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you as always, Gil.
Today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Buying tickets to your favorite events shouldn't be stressful. Gametime is the fast and easy way to buy tickets for all sports, music, comedy, and theater near you. With killer deals on last-minute tickets and their best price guarantee, you can stop stressing over the tickets and start getting hyped for the fun that you'll have. Forget planning months in advance. Gametime has deals on tickets right up to the day of the event. You can get exclusive flash deals on tickets for football, basketball, baseball, concerts, comedy, theater, and more. And the Gametime guarantee means you'll always get the best price. If you find tickets in the same section and row for less, Gametime will credit you 110% of the difference. So snag the tickets without the stress with Gametime. Just download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Download Gametime today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed.